Paid content is just another name for native advertising. If a content creator can make it, companies will buy it. This includes articles, infographics, films, and anything else. You might be wondering what makes a native ad different from an advertorial. For the content to be considered a true native ad, it must be written in the same style and tone as the publication or website. It must also have the kind of information that most readers of the publication expect. Because of these things, native ads are often hard to spot because they blend in so well with the organic content. This is hard because there aren't any clear laws or standards about how publishers must label native ads. Also, different publications have very different standards for how open they should be. Also, it's important to keep in mind that native advertising and content advertising aren't always the same thing. Regrettably, confusion is frequently caused by the overlap between the two fields and their names. Eric Gores, who is in charge of innovation at Time magazine, gave this advice at a recent Contently summit. Gores spoke at the event's Truth in Advertising panel, where the main topic of discussion was native advertising. Gores' warning was about the trust between a publisher and its readers, and he emphasized how dangerous it could be to upset readers by lying and cheating to make money quickly. Native ads are loved by brands and marketers because they tend to have much higher click-through rates and much higher levels of engagement than traditional ads. Yet, not everyone, especially customers, is as taken by native advertisements. Native advertising has been criticized by a number of professional groups for being unclear a lot of the time. The Federal Trade Commission is thinking about putting limits on companies that market their products through native advertising. The FTC has also said that it may closely watch the market to make sure that native advertising is used in a way that helps consumers. The American Society of Magazine Editors has also called for more transparency and rules when it comes to native advertising. Many publishers see native advertising as a risky business because this kind of content could hurt people's trust in the media. In the end, if Dell pays the New York Times to publish an article, can the Times be trusted to tell the truth about Dell? Or has every mention of the company been bought? Right now, this is a problem for publishers. 5 great examples of native advertising. Now that we know that native advertising is here to stay, at least for now, let's take a look at some of the best and worst examples. 1. The woman is going to take a short break after writing her name and address on her tax forms. It's a joke. One of the funniest satire websites online, The Onion, is good at native advertising, as this well-known example shows. To be honest, this example doesn't really fit the definition of native advertising given above. First of all, H&R Block didn't just put its own content on the website. The Onion made this content especially for H&R Block, in this example, H&R Block. Still, I think it's more like native advertising than traditional sponsored content because of how and where the content is placed. When this article came out in 2012, there were many traditional vertical and horizontal banner ads for H&R Block around it, even if site visitors didn't click on these banners, which is unlikely since Solve Media says you're 475 times more likely to survive a plane crash than click a banner ad. The end result was a much higher level of brand awareness. How and why it works. Even though this post isn't really about H&R Block, it does deal with the usually dull and boring subject of taxes in a fun, easy to understand, and very engaging way, which helps build a positive relationship with the advertiser. Even the box that says the content on the website is sponsored by T. Herman Zweibel, a made-up publisher emeritus of The Onion, was made fun of in this native ad. The main goal of the campaign was to make more people aware of the H&R Block brand. This example of native advertising did a great job of doing that, even though the banners were also calls to action. 2. The graphic UPS's 2012 study of changes in the supply chain quick company. This infographic showing how UPS has improved its supply chain management is another great example of native advertising. It's not the most beautiful infographic you'll ever see, but it does what it needs to do. This infographic is a great example of native advertising because it fits in so well with the other content on Fast Company. A small gray advertisement tag is at the top of the page. It's definitely easy to forget. The infographic does a good job of selling UPS's services in the tried and true problem/solution style because it uses UPS's brown and yellow color scheme, which subtly reinforces the brand messaging of the content. 3. Read the article 10 Quotes Every Grad Should Know, BuzzFeed. Alongside BuzzFeed, which puts out Upworthy, is the most successful online source of viral hits. Is it surprising that the website will eventually let sponsors with big budgets reach the people it wants to read it? As an example, think about the community pages on BuzzFeed, which include companies like the publishing giant HarperCollins. As you can see from the above statement, posts to BuzzFeed's community section have not been vetted or endorsed by BuzzFeed's editorial staff. This means that HarperCollins, Mini, Pepsi, and the other brands that publish content at BuzzFeed have only paid for the chance to promote their brand to BuzzFeed readers. The big HarperCollins logo above the social share buttons is the only thing that sets this apart from BuzzFeed's usual content. Why it does work, how well this example of native advertising works, depends on how timely it is. First of all, the post came out at the same time as graduations, which was late June. Second, the post was based on the teacher David McCullough Jr.'s graduation speech, which was called "You Are Not Unique." As you might expect, the headline is well written for BuzzFeed's readers, and the post strictly follows BuzzFeed's popular format of an animated GIF and a list. There isn't much of a clear link between the client, a big publishing house, and the content, other than the implied link between college graduates and books. Because of this, the ad comes across as a soft sell, which is easier for audiences to accept than overt product placement. 4. Should you take your employer's pension buyout offer? Is the title of an article in Forbes. Since Forbes has gone from having a full-time staff to being run by contributors, it's not surprising that it has started to print ads from companies like Fidelity Investments. Forbes has been putting out articles like this for a long time. This is a great example of native advertising because even though the article is clearly branded and has a clear point of view, it still gives useful information. It talks about the pros and cons of both monthly payments and lump sums as ways to buy out a pension. It backs this up with accurate data on inflation rates and the tax effects of taking a pension buyout offer. How and why it works. Even though this article is clearly paid for and Fidelity is open about the services it offers, it gives more financial advice and insight than most of the other business and finance articles on Forbes. Overall, this kind of native advertising gives the reader real value, does it in a way that Forbes readers would expect, and meets the publication's editorial and style standards. But people who read Fidelity should keep in mind what its goal is. An excellent illustration. 5. Hennessy helps us find wild rabbits. Vanity Fair wanted to know, but what's the point? Since Vanity Fair has been publishing content about how to live a stylish life for a long time, it is the perfect platform for native advertising. His native advertisement is a mix of written and visual content that shows how an English race car driver named Sir Malcolm Campbell, also known as the fastest man on Earth, was the subject of a documentary. Campbell was the first person to break the 300 miles per hour land speed record in 1935. He is still a symbol of desire and the perfect person to use to sell fine liquor. The Never Stop, Never Settle campaign for Hennessy was pushed by the video, which was made with the help of the advertising company Droga 5. How and why it works. The essay is interesting and makes a subtle but striking connection between Campbell's adventurous spirit and Hennessy's Wild Rabbit campaign. The required product placement in the content is handled well. It doesn't seem out of place or irrelevant to the subject.